Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Big Sky Now podcast. As always, I'm your host, Josh Amick, with my panel. Still missing John, but we have Fritz, Mark, and Ian here with us. We're going to kick off right into this weekend with UC Davis against Montana. It's probably the game of the year. I'm super excited about it. UC Davis is 8-1, Montana 7-2. Montana is at home. So what do we think is going to be the key in this game for either team to prevail? Let's start with you, Fritz.
Okay. Well, I think the biggest key will be how if Montana's defense continues to hold up and improve. Ian mentioned this on Tuesday. They've been on the upswing, going back to when they gave up a touchdown to fall behind 20-10 against NEU. The opponents have had 26 drives and scored once. Now, those opponents weren't always the greatest opponents, Northern Colorado and Cal Poly. But still, that's saying something. That's a lot of empty possessions. But and now the challenge goes up a couple notches with a balanced offense with Miles Hastings and Lan Larison, who Bobby Houck repeatedly has referred to as the best player in the league.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that'll be quite the atmosphere that they're going to face going into Washington Griz on a Saturday night. So, and that'll be a big part of it. How do they handle that? And like Fritz said, can Montana's defense stop UC Davis? I mean, they're like we talked about in the last episode how balanced they are. It's not like you can just load up against one or the other because they can do both. You look at Montana; they gave up 49 to Eastern, 55 to Weber. They're starting a run of 3 straight games against teams that can move the ball: Davis and Portland State and Montana State. So I think that's the key. Whether Montana's defense can stop Davis, and can Montana's crowd affect Davis? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, you're not going to hear anything original from me. I'm also on the defense for Montana in this one. I think that's obviously a huge factor in this game for them to hold up against this UC Davis pass offense. And just whether it's in the secondary or if they're getting pressure on Hastings, throw him off his game a little bit. And then, I mean, on the flip side, just kind of how UC Davis can take advantage of a Montana defense that we've seen give up some big plays in the past game this season.
All right. Yeah, that should be a great game. It is the late game, so you might be staying up late watching that game. I know Fritz and John will be glued to their TV. But Portland State, they look like their offense was finally clicking last week, and now they host Idaho, a team that has kind of been known for their defense throughout the season, and they're coming off their bye week. So do the Vikings have a shot at the upset, or with the Vandals getting laying back, do you think that the Vandals handle this one pretty easy, Mark?
A few weeks ago, I probably wouldn't worry about this one too much, but after last week, I think it kind of got interesting. I mean, Saussure, he's a handful, and he has been a handful in other games, not every game, but I think, after what they did to Sac State, I mean, Idaho's defense is better than Sac State's, and so they should be better equipped to stop them coming off a bye. So we'll see if they're rested or rusted. We'll see. One thing that Portland State, if they go up tempo, that was something earlier in the year that teams like, UC Davis and Abilene Christian did to Idaho, and that was kind of a problem against their defense. So that's something that could be a factor. Then there's that great home advantage in Hillsboro. Okay. Thank you, Fritz. But we'll see. But I mean, Portland State coming off a big win might be a little more, motivated in this game than if they were coming off a big loss or just any old kind of loss. So it should be interesting how that one unfolds now.
Yeah, I think Portland State has a puncher's chance now. Like Mark said, a couple weeks ago, probably not now. After what Dante Saussure did this past week, Idaho's a different animal. I think I don't know if Portland State, if they have Saussure touching the ball that many times, how healthy he'll stay. The problem was Sac State didn't really touch him very much last week, so I think Idaho's a little more physical team, a lot better on defense. I think I'm still picking Idaho, but yeah, Portland State has a puncher's chance.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Portland State have a close game at home against one of these top teams in the Big Sky when they took a close game against UC Davis a couple weeks ago or a month ago or so. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'd say they definitely have a chance in this game, especially if Sachere can play like how he played last week. I mean, he was insane last week. And to just kind of see how Idaho is coming off the bye. We saw last 2 weeks ago now against Eastern when Lane comes back and they look maybe a little bit rusty, just kind of adapting to that new quarterback back, or not new quarterback, but getting their quarterback back in there. Maybe it's a similar thing in this one coming off a bye. Yeah, that I could definitely see that coming into a close game towards the end there.
The other Idaho team that is also coming off the bye is Idaho State, and they will face Weber State, which is the team I cannot figure out to save the life of me. What version of the Bengals or the Wildcats do we get this weekend, you think?
That's a great question, though. Yeah, what version are we going to get? How do we know? I mean, Weber's, they beat Montana and then lost three straight. And Idaho State's had some good wins and some head scratching losses. I mean, Weber last week, I mean, they were down 21-0 before he could, blink an eye. And then the rest of the way, it was pretty close, a couple turnovers and it kind of got out of hand and that was kind of it. So, Idaho State might be favored on the road. And I don't think anybody would have thought that going into this season. So that's a great question. Which team, which version of which team shows up on Saturday?
Yeah, Weber State has a decent pass defense when they're not giving up 75-yard touchdowns on the first play of the game like last week. I think that could be a big difference maker in this matchup. Obviously, Idaho State likes to throw the ball a lot. But yeah, I have no idea which Weber State we're gonna get. I don't know if we're gonna get the one that beat Montana or the one that lost to Northern Colorado a couple weeks ago. I guess we'll know halfway through the first quarter.
Yeah, it was 21-0 in a blink last week. They were down. The only reason I can think of to pick Weber is that they're at home, but the post-Griz hangover is now lasted three games, three losses. Stewart Stadium's not going to be very full, and I just kind of like what the coaching staff at Idaho State has done. So I kind of have to lean Bengals and kind of expect Weber State to keep flailing.
All right. This might sound like a crazy question with the way Sacramento State has been playing lately, and now they face the best team in the Big Sky, heading to Bozeman to face MSU. MSU keep this thing rolling easily, or Sac State finally gets some things figured out? What do we think?
Yeah, I don't know if Montana State is the team you're going to get things figured out against. We know how turnover prone this Sacramento State team is, and they're going against probably the best defense in the Big Sky. I'm sure Montana State's going to want to really get things going defensively after giving up 28 to Eastern last week, being tied in the fourth quarter. Haven't seen that since, I guess, or hasn't seen a game that close since week 0 when they played New Mexico. So, yeah, unfortunately for Sac State, I think Montana State's going to roll in this one.
Yeah, I agree with Ian. I mean, what a game to try to get well with going and playing at Bobcat Stadium. Cats haven't been home in a month thanks to the road games and a bye, and they'll be a packed house and if Sac State needs a positive, maybe Eastern, with some extra +1 offense kind of created some problems last week. I think Montana State expected Vesperis to play and he didn't. But yeah, it's going to be a cold day for Sacramento State to come up and win one at Bozeman. It's not going to happen Saturday.
Yeah, maybe the only chance they have is if Montana State's looking ahead the next week against UC Davis, and then that game a couple of weeks, the week after that against whoever that is. Sac State can put up the points. They can't. They don't seem to be able to stop anybody lately. But that'd be the only thing is if Montana State kind of helps them out by maybe not being totally focused on this one.
All right, fair enough. Well, that's going to wrap up the topics for this week, but we're going to get into my favorite portion of the episode, and that is our picks for the weekend. And no surprise here, Fritz is still currently on top of the leaderboard, sweeping last week. He even got the upset right with Portland State. So he has the picks to start us off, and he's 63-14 on the season. We got Ian still close behind him, 61-16. Mark is close behind him, 60-17. I had a rough week, so I'm down to 58-19. And John, who's not here, is down to 57-20, but he still gave me his picks for this week. So, Fritz, go ahead and kick us off with what you think is going to happen over the weekend.
Well, Eastern, I think we'll win at Northern Colorado. And I'm going to pick Idaho State winning at Weber. Gives other people an opening there, I think. I still have Idaho winning at Portland State, even though the Vikings seem to be playing pretty well on offense. NEU at Cal Poly. I got NEU winning. And then I'm going to pick Montana over Davis in a mild upset based on the rankings. And I apologize for my voice. I have a cold.
What about Montana State, Sac State? I'm assuming you're picking Montana State.
Oh, did I skip one? See, that's
Yeah.
what happens. I'm not 100%. Yeah, Cats all the way.
You may not be 100%, but your picks were last week. So hopefully your flu is going to help us get back in the game. All right, Ian, you're next up.
Man, this isn't fair. I'm picking against Fritz when he's on his flu game right now. Most of mine are kind of similar. Going with Eastern over Northern Colorado, Idaho State over Weber State, Montana State over Sac State, Idaho over Portland State, NAU over Cal Poly, and I'm going to go with Davis over Montana. So we have a little bit of against each other there.
All right. Mark, it's on you.
Okay, I'm going to take Eastern to win at Northern Colorado, no matter who their quarterback is at Eastern this week. I was kind of hoping Fritz would take Weber because I was picking Idaho State. I'm taking Idaho State to win at Weber, Montana State to beat Sac State, Idaho to win at Portland State, Northern Arizona to win at Cal Poly, and then just Ian kind of did this too, so I was going to do it anyway. I'm taking UC Davis with it's not a seed up or a ranking upset, but I think winning at Montana would be a bigger deal. I'd be more impressed with UC Davis winning that game than I would with Montana winning in Missoula. So I'm taking UC Davis to win that one at Montana.
All right. I'll read off John's picks since he is not here. He has Eastern over Northern Colorado, Idaho State over Weber State. He's picking Montana State over Sacramento State, Idaho over Portland State, NAU over Cal Poly, and shockingly, the Griz alumni is picking UC Davis to beat Montana. So
Shock.
we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Are we all going to be on Idaho State this week? I don't know if this is going to end well for us.
No, because fear not, the guy who's picking terrible all season is picking Weber State to beat Idaho State. And I'm doing it out of spite because I have picked Weber State two different times when I thought they had a shot at losing, and I went with Weber State, and they did me wrong. But I'm giving them a third and last opportunity to get right. So I have Weber State over Idaho State. I have Eastern over Northern Colorado, Montana State over Sacramento State, Idaho over Portland State, NAU over Cal Poly. And since everyone's on UC Davis, I'm going to go with Montana in this one. I had a UC Davis originally, but I'm going to pick Montana just because I need to make up some ground. That's the only reason why. I do think UC Davis is the better team currently, but I think the home advantage is going to be the key difference in this game. That is going to wrap up this episode of the Big Sky Now podcast. Thank you always for joining me, and thank you to the panel, Fritz, Mark, and Ian. We'll see you all next week, see how our picks did, and head into the final 3 weeks of the season before playoffs begin. So thank you again for joining us, and until next time, take care.